strange relationship created by that situation. And sort of we travel a lot, and we see each other more often outside of LA, not in LA. And I guess also, I was kind of shocked when I saw the kind of new LA Times article about you and myself. Just one page of this big photograph and talking about people from Asia is taking over the major school, architectural school in LA. It was shocking because it's not in our culture to talk about somebody who just took over the school in a public newspaper. It's because I thought, wow, so if you do something really horrible, maybe you're gonna write this big ugly article about me. So I was, although I used to be in LA as a student and also the young architect working for called Perron Blanc in LA, still the whole culture here, especially the academic environment, was so different from the world I know. So I assume that this is something similar to the situation that we might encounter. And in that sense, I really feel sort of a sense of, I would say, friendship and ally, and hoping that we can survive for a while. But today, also thank you very much for the very nice introduction. And today I have more opportunity to talk about my work as an architect, not as some kind of administrative figure. And well, I started my career by, luckily, with a big project study. And since then, we are involved in project in different scales. Sometimes we do actually the master plan, and we do some funny event, crazy event, which is like wedding on the street or some kind of a urban renovation without really doing any design work. And so that I kind of believe that the architecture has an interesting sort of diversity. It's not limited to just by designing the building. And today, of course, I'm not going to show you, those things which cannot be seen as a visual work. I will just show you a whole bunch of images to amuse your eye. But actually, what's interesting about architecture is it can be anything. And this way of thinking is coming from me. I see that the architecture is more relative things, not the absolute sort of physical existence. So I believe that the architecture is just a unification of diverse phenomena, kind of creating kind of a sense of the place there. So it should mediate different things in a particular place, constituting the sensation of the place, not physically, but also, not only the physically, but also, I don't know the term, but it should connect political sense, it should connect things happen. Why don't you come in? There's lots of seats here. So, and sometimes I use this image to sort of explain what the architecture is. For me, it's like a soap bubble. So the soap bubble, of course, it has kind of a shape by itself, but actually what it does is it's just a reflection of the relationship, maybe of the air inside and air outside. And it's just soap bubble is sort of flexible enough, reflecting the relationship of these adjacent conditions. So to me, architecture is like that. So that's something which is sort of relying on the kind of conditions, creating that sensation of the place, but also it is also defining the space itself. Today, actually, I think think the title of the lecture is 4 Things I'm Interested in Building. And I would like to talk about 4 issues. Actually, it's 5 issues, but I not be able to maybe finish 5, so I just said 4. But I will talk about the 4 things that I'm particularly interested in the building. The reason why I use the term building is because, again, I believe, let's say when we design something, and we always tend to think that there's something already solid in your mind, so that all the process of doing architecture is about how to extract what you have in your brain out to realizing a reality. But the point I'm taking is not like that. You are already within this environment too, so that you actually live through the project. So the project you do emerges through the experience of even design and through doing the construction document and also through the experience of construction, so that the design happens not in here or out there, but where the inside and outside meet each other, like this soap bubble too. So I would like to just talk about things I found or things I've been interested in by doing or by experiencing this process of architecture. So the first thing, mediating form. I'm sorry, title is not matter. So maybe as English it might be strange, but it could be different term. This is like an early project I did, like when I was a student. It's a kind of a movable structure, depending on maybe the environment. These things move to change the volume of the air and also change the opening so that it could be adjusted to the sort of a needs of environment. And I was very interested in kind of moving pieces so that I thought not the shape itself, but the movement itself is something we can design. Then when we asked to design some object for the museum, we kind of came up with this kind of funny structure. It's a kind of transformable sort of object, so it could be transformed into different shapes, so that each time we pull out, it could be different in the shape according to where it's going to be placed. And it was impossible to draw the shape of it, so we kind of came up with this chart to indicate how the shape could be, and the kind of mechanism, and then you do things. It just, to tell you, the transformable architecture is impossible at the moment because it's so heavy. Even for this size of object, it weighs 2 tons, and it needs like 15 people to move and transform it every day. But it was kind of interesting because somehow that made me think, there's a shape, and it changes according to where we place this object, and it's kind of reflecting the kind of landscape for the basically, in this case, shape of the particular plaza. And I was really, really interested in investigating what this means, because it was kind of different from like let's say the image you had about the architecture at that time, like as a kind of icon of certain things. This is actually the drawing by, actually it was one of the scholars in Japan, but actually it's based on the study by Darwin. This is a movement of basically the plants. If you look at the flower or the plants, there's it's all similar, but actually it's different. Although the system is same, there's a kind of interesting sort of particularity in each plant. And then they studied how it happens. And then what they found out was, of course, the shape of the plants are influenced by the surroundings, right? The sun and the water and wind, or if there's a kind of animal influence that. But also they found that the flower itself has kind of motion of a rotation. It kind of rotates this way. So that this motion of the rotation is picking up all the environmental changes and forming kind of particularity of the shape. And that's how they kind of analyze. Actually, this is a pattern of the growth of the cabbage. So how it actually, it's moving. Well, this is a kind of a drawing showing how insects are flying and generating the kind of field of vibration. And then by doing that, this vibration, the initial sort of gesture, is picking up what's happening around it. Actually, they call this movement brute fact or something like that. And when we were asked to design the bridge as a symbol of the, or as a gate for the new part of the city, and the mayor said, bridge is there, you get a handrail to chain out of the bridge and make it as a symbol. And I'm sure that he had something like this in his mind, so that we can use sort of an icon to symbolize the place. And if you remember the initial talk I made, this was not the kind of direction I wanted to do. And then I thought there must be some way to visualize the condition there, condition which is not yet visualized. And the existing bridge. And luckily, the existing bridge has lots of restrictions and has also the existing kind of requirements, such as the location of the street lamp needs to be integrated, the maximum height and minimum height of the handrail, and also some kind of restriction coming from the water level and so on. So I thought, okay, that's something. And then we started to place kind of a sets of rules, in this case, triangle shape. And we let it through these things, and then these systems catched up all those invisible sets of kind of rules, and then formed the shape by itself. This triangle shape was made by the trusses, and this is a kind of drawing we need to do to define the geometry. So it is like the movement of the cabbage or the bird or the insect trying to sort of visualize the environment around. This triangle acted as a kind of medium to pick up the situation around it. Of course, now they say, oh, that's the parametric things. But this was 1993, and I didn't have a computer even. I had a actually word processor with the accounting software. So the guy in my office had to connect all this formula and then did this. It was kind of painful time, right? And then this is how it's been done, and then, blah, blah, blah. When you drive through, you'll see these things as if it's moving. Then based on the same idea, we did this auditorium and kind of a community center. It's a very small facility in southern part of Japan. Has a very simple program, the combination of auditorium and the community hall, and it was designed to increase efficiency of its use, and this is a program diagram. But the idea was to make very simple box which could sort of contain different functions together. So it should act as one big space. But of course, we had to kind of have small spaces to provide like a toilets and offices and so on. So we tried to fuse them into one volume, and it created some sort of kind of one space articulated by this kind of series of wavy walls, so that it's one space, but it was kind of softly articulated into different kind of corners. Similar drawing as a bridge. As you, basically there's a field we define by the program analysis. And we let this kind of system run through it. And then this kind of a set of rule reflects the condition of the place and then generated interesting space. Actually, this is a wooden frame set in the interval of 90 centimeters. And as you can see that, it looks complex, but basically just a series of wooden frame transforming gradually from, of course, the bottom to the top. And this is a drawing showing basically the elevation changes of the wall. As you can see, it consists of just one single line, kind of, how to say that, swinging this way according to the needs of each space. For instance, in auditorium, the shape of this wall has to accommodate the acoustic requirements. So it went like that, and also for the particular place, you have to have certain angles so that people can walk through. Or sometimes the angle of the wall are defined by the detail of the exterior skin, because it's a wooden construction and the skin kind of connected in a particular way, so that only allows certain kind of shift. So interesting thing is that this system or the geometry started to integrate the different conditions, detailing or acoustic requirements or the just simple space requirement, and it became interesting medium to tie and then generate the space you can experience. This is a section. Again, the construction photograph. And we are forced to use wood because it was financed by Ministry of Forestry. We used the local wood. And as you can see, the construction itself is very sort of conventional. And of course, the budget was limited, so we couldn't use any high-tech material or the construction methodology. But the way geometry applied was a bit different. Even we had to work with a local carpenter to kind of generate the interest or the difficult details, such as twisted glass wall. This is how it's been done. So you can see, although it looks very radical when you see the traditional house here, and the technology used here and here are very similar. This is a glass wall. Of course, we couldn't use any bended glass, so that we had to kind of create this wavy glass wall by using series of slate flat glass. So as you can see, the glass is twisted gradually to accomplish this twisted surface. That actually detail also generated interesting condition. Oh, this is interior. So as you can see here, the pattern here is much larger than this one. And the reason why is because this twist is much larger than this one, so that this one cannot accommodate this large piece of glass. It had to be smaller. So it became this kind of a difference in the pattern. And that is also reflected in the space. Just go very quickly. This is a small auditorium, 200 seating, so it's about this size. karaoke festival. This space is so intimate and was designed for the very small community where everybody knows each other. And therefore, they kept this kind of a wall towards the multi-purpose space behind open to connect this space and there in order to actually create a synergy among the different activity taking place at this moment, such as performing, watching performance, preparation of the performance, and so on. And it was quite interesting. Usually it's a mess if it happens, but in a small community, everybody knows each other, really creates intense moment for the event and makes this place more vital and kind of work. It didn't generate the chaos, it generated the energy. Stadium. This is actually amazingly the first project we did, but also it took me 9 years to finish it. And still the largest project probably I ever done. I hope it's not the largest in my life, but maybe. I was so happy when we heard that the Japan national team is going to fight for the World Cup here. The World Cup was held in Japan in collaboration with Korea, and then the Japan national team made it to, how do you say, whatever, the second phase, and then they were fighting against Turkey here. I was very happy. But then the town into the disaster because they lost against Turkey. And what happened is, this is the stadium the national team lost against Turkey in the World Cup held in Japan. That's something you cannot eliminate anymore. But the main concept here was actually to create a sort of a hybrid of the architecture and an urban landscape. The reason why we need to make such a hybrid was that stadium, if you look at the stadium, it's a very enclosed, and it's forced you to look at, of course, the center. That's the nature of the building. And we were really worried because if this is located in the center of the city, it will be nice because there will be lots of events taking place and you need to control it, and also it's even the exclusiveness of the place can be seen as a symbolic nature of the building, like the stadium in Rome. But this is located in a countryside, and you won't be able to hold such a major event so often. It's a 50,000 seating area, it's a huge landscape. It has to be open to also the daily life, daily activity, small activity of the people. So it should be open. So in order to accomplish two different nature of the building, we kind of try to combine hilly landscape, which is completely opposite of this one. Open, people stand here, will look at the different places. By combining these characters together, we felt that this kind of openness and closeness, control and control can be together. And also we can save money by leaning the half of the structure against the earth. So basically this is the building part, this is a kind of a back stand leaning against the hill, and the hill was open to the public and extended through the stadium as a kind of a skywall. So when even the stadium is closed, we can open the stadium partially, and still you can jog and so on. But the interesting part was to study different kind of explanation. The landscape and architecture and the landscapes are described in a different way. Mostly you use topoline to describe landscape, and we kind of did a study how we can kind of control geometry of these two different things. And there's a series of things. Yeah. So the roof is extended out from the stadium itself to show the gesture that this is not only for the building, but this is a kind of monument roof for the entire landscape. Similar drawing as bridge or the auditorium. So the intention here was trying to unite, well actually it's trying to project different functional needs and also the conditions are around it in this kind of system, so that all the shape will become sort of a translation of such conditions. So if you walk here, you will see that the frame is gradually transforming into something else. Yeah, like a bridge. This is a main entrance, big roof. Size, this is the size of the human. Right now, this green, this is supposed to be green, but when we took the photograph, when you finish this kind of project, you really want to take a good photograph, and I couldn't wait until the lawn grows back. Interior training center and interior running track. So this is where Japan lost the game against Turkey. And also we have an incredible structure. Basically, in order to accomplish this long cantilever with only just one line of column, we kind of created this kind of ball-like structure so that the end of the roof are tied together by this huge post-stressed concrete beam, so that the roof can fly. And you can see that the structure is transforming gradually from one to the other. Okay, so I was very interested in this kind of a sort of form as a sort of, I guess, the log, or the log, I guess, of the series of events took place. And sometimes actually we kind of try to absorb the incident happened in the design process and then leave that as it is. And interesting thing is, of course, this is maybe, especially the bridge project, is a preliminary sort of trial to do something similar to so-called parametric design nowadays. And I might admit that some of the approach here is very similar to that. But I still have a kind of a, I would say, I don't know, I have a very mixed feeling about the parametric design as a design methodology. Because first, I'm not sure if I know well. And second of all, it's always difficult. So there's two issues. What kind of a parameter you need to set up? And if you need to justify that, that's going to be horrible. Sometimes the parameter could be very intuitive. It could be very stupid. But that will architecture, what's interesting about architecture is still it could make sense. And still it could be more beneficially than the parameter set logically. So that's the one issue. And the second issue is the brute fact. For all of these things, like the plant has this initial movement in order to read the environment. You have to set that the first action. So I will use this brute fact as a term, and then bridge, stadium, everything, you need to make a movement or a gesture to capture each parameter. And I'm not sure how you can justify this thing, which one is better to the other. So that will become the big argument, and that's why I'm interested in this issue, and that's why also I have a sort of a interesting distance from the parametric design approach. Maybe this is something I can talk with many people in the future. Then the second things I'm interested in is a new materiality. When you are designing something, and as a nature architect, say wood, you show this kind of pattern on the surface and you stain it, and somehow we are kind of told that it is a very good thing to show the nature of the material. And that material, the concrete, steel, that kind of things. It's true that you have to play with it, but actually maybe there's another thing that you can't really draw out from the material. And sometimes, actually, when I was in Japan, there's a famous public building, and then built like 100 years ago. It was very famous because it has a beautiful marble wall, that big. And everyone was saying, okay, let's destroy the building, but let's preserve that marble wall. But then by the time they demolished most of the part, they realized that it's not the marble, it was stucco painted so perfectly, and then it looked like the marble, and everybody trusted it's a marble. But if you look at that thing, it's a technology in a way which created the simulation of the marble. And also, it's a material actually applied with the technology to create the illusion of it. So I thought it's kind of interesting. This is a small tower I designed in Japan. And if you know Japan, there's a so-called tenant building. Basically, it's a building supposed to contain restaurants and bars. So if you get in this tower, basically, well, you can spend maybe 5 hours in a different bars and restaurants, and by the time you get out, you're totally drunk. But what I did here, since we cannot design interior, we are asked to design just basically the white cube. We decided maybe it's not us to really design a special picture, but we should just provide a possibility for the interior designer to do something interesting. And we look at the basic organization of the building, typical. Usually there's a different floor, could be spread in 2 or 3, and there's a vertical circulation, each floor separated. Instead, we propose this alternative approach so that you can move through the building, or you can actually lease the place in a 3-dimensional way. So it's more effective for the client. Also, as an interior designer, maybe you want to design 2-story or 3-story restaurant. What we did was very simple, kind of a skywalk, or that it's not really. We created extension of the pedestrian way in a spiral motion. And this could be used as a kind of a terrace or the extension of the restaurant, or could be kind of interesting path connecting different levels. And you can just install the stair here to connect it. And this is and the plan is very simple. You have all this kind of a necessary vertical circulation here. Then we cut out one corner and then place it in a rotation manner so that generates the spiral space. It's like this movement of the cabbage again, so that this spiral gesture did generate interesting shape at the end, because the spatial requirements and maximum floor area and also the weird shape, so that somehow it turned out to be this kind of interesting sculptural form. But then there was a problem. This was such a cheap building, and we had to use, maybe if I were
we are more smart, we could find another material, but only material which fit in the budget was ALC panel, aggregated lightweight concrete panel. And many of you who knows about that material, it's really sad looking things, usually used for parking tower in Japan or the warehouses. So if I use that honestly for the material, then everybody will see this as more like a parking lot or something. So that will reduce the value of the building. So we have to come up with a way to kill it or find something else. And what we did was actually we found there's a machine to curve the surface of this ALC panel. And we designed together with the graphic designer this pattern. So you can even integrate the seam in it. So this is a panel carved by this milling machine, things like that. And I'm sure your eye is irritated at the moment because we planned so that the foreground and the background has this strange sort of relationship so that you can't really focus on the surface to eliminate materiality of the ALC panel so that the volume became more pure somehow. So that the effect of these dancing cues became more evident than the actual material. But I thought it's quite interesting, this sort of, we are very honest to the nature of the material, but use differently or alter it by using technology. This is a sculptural museum we did. It's a very small museum, 2,000 square foot floor area. The owner had an 8 sculpture to the house. She's a private, she had a practice as a doctor, and she wanted to make a kind of an artistic center for this local area. So this was built behind her house, and it's so hard to find where this is. So when we discussed, we thought we shouldn't make a white cube where maybe kind of an exhibition can take place. We should actually create a special place which is really, really well tied with the sculpture so that you have to come to experience it. You cannot see it on the magazine, or maybe it's so different from the other museums, so that you have to come here to experience this whole thing, whole experience of being in a space with a sculpture. And I had a fascination about this bubbly space. So a sculpture, bubbles squeeze into the volume. And of course, when I talked to the structural engineer, he said, oh, it's easy, we just put the steel frame and put the drywall in between. But it wasn't kind of what I wanted. I wanted to have also the structure like a soap bubble. So the idea we came up with was to stamp the steel panel, create this embossed pattern, and then weld them to each other and create the honeycomb panel. So by looking at this is a particular section, so there's 1 room, 2 room, 3 room. Each room was surrounded by or wrapped by the thin steel, and the steel bubble are attached to each other with these impulse, and then it becomes very solid structure. This is how it is. And then, of course, you have to talk with the guy who built it actually about how to make this embossed panel, and then there's a lot of study about how to stamp it so that each embossed panel will be stretched equally if you cannot stretch this equally, that will become the deficiency in the structure. So we have to find a way to do it properly. And these are welded, and then cut and put it together in the factory, and then ship to the site, and put it together as if it is like a kind of plastic bubbles. And you can see how accurate they were. They were the shipbuilders. We couldn't find any architectural contractor who is willing to do this. And then, luckily that we had this shipbuilder who has extreme skill to weld or to deal with the steel. Exterior of this building is actually covered by the coating steel. And these pattern, which is a result of the structural design, became actual interesting pattern and creating also interesting sense of the materiality. And as the weather changes the surface of this coating steel, somehow this pattern has interesting character to the surface and ages well. Interior. This is also Henry Moore. Two of this can pay entire construction of the building. So now you know which kind of profession you are in, right? So anyway, I just go very quickly. I was very worried about actually this pattern as a background of the sculpture, but it really works well. It's almost reinforces the three-dimensionality of the sculpture. This is a restaurant we did for an owner who wanted to have a Japanese French restaurant. And we just did this interior of the building. Since this building was kind of weird, we decided to insert interior skin to control the interior. And also, there's a beautiful rose of tree. Actually, this street is famous for this rose of the Aoba tree. And we wanted to create a kind of connection between this restaurant and the street. So we kind of thought maybe there's a looking at create situation so that this interior wall can control the view. But it wasn't enough. So the idea we came up with to take the photograph of the tree and process this image into the series of dots so that it will become kind of a series of hole on the interior skin can be made by pneumatic control palette machine. This is an unfolded image. You can see the shape of the trees. If you hold it back, then it's supposed to recreate this kind of a space of the forest. These are guys who, again, the shipbuilders. The reason why we had to work with them was architectural builder always said that we have to build a frame and then screw the panel on it. But the point we were making is if you have a frame behind, you will see it through the hole. And we didn't want to have any support behind it. And then these guys said, oh, we always do that. We just weld them together and it's all fine. And yes. And the amazing thing is this steel panel is only 2.2 millimeter. It's very thin. And these are actually the things they fabricated in a factory. This is an interesting photograph. See, outside, you can tell how thin the steel is. Very thin, like almost the thickness of the paper. But if you look inside, suddenly you feel the depth to it. But this depth was created as an illusion within only 2.2 millimeter. And I thought it's quite interesting. The materiality shown here and the materiality shown here are so juxtaposing to each other, but I thought this is a really, really interesting opportunity to investigate. And again, I tell you, the machine takes care of these dots, but when you weld it together, there's a seam which doesn't have any holes. So you have to hand drill it. And also, we knew that if we don't actually tell where it needs to be hand drilled, the worker will not do it. So one night, we got all of my office got into this space and drove each hole. It was like the most painful moment that, anyway. But it's interesting because even though it's a really low tech, but also we have to use very high tech because you cannot do these kind of things without having a computer. And it was almost impossible to do this on the paper. So each time at the construction site, basically we go in a computer and look at these things in 3D. This is what it is. So what's happening is, of course, we put the series of lights inside or behind this wall. There's a space between interior wall and existing wall, and that space is painted white. So when we put the light on, the light is reflected by the white wall and coming through this hole into the space and generate this kind of effect. Or I would say new materiality. It was actually more than we thought. The owner of the restaurant, actually, it's been like almost 3 years or 4 years since we did this. They haven't opened the restaurant yet, and they're using us his private salon still. Yeah, so you have to know his phone number in order to use this restaurant. Okay. Phenomenal. Of course, in English, phenomenal means it's great, but also, I just wanted to say that when you design building, of course you are dealing with the physical stuff, but actually sometimes, or most of the case actually, you are trying to deal with something which is not physical, but more like a phenomenon, like air, light, shadow, or people, and so on. So you try many ways to deal with it. This is sometimes it's a water, and this is things that we did for the water, or sometimes it's a sound. This is a soundscape I did. Yeah, I'm not going to talk about this, but it was a funny project. And also, sometimes you deal with the light. This is a kind of a exhibition I did about my work in the museum I designed. I didn't want to put my model or drawings because I thought it's stupid to do it within my own building. So instead what we did was we placed different colored plastic in every opening, every source of light, in order to investigate how these particular spaces are consisted by the lights. And it was so amazing because actually the space you're looking at and the space you design you are not really aware actually how that space is created by the different source of lights. But by coloring different source of the light, you can really learn what's going on. So, light, or movement of people, and this is the kind of things we did to analyze the movement of the people and so on. So how you can really deal with this kind of phenomenal things, and you need to try that. This is a house we did for the Tokyo. It's a very small house. It's only 5.4 meter by 5.4 meters, so it fits maybe half of this hall. And there are so many small houses in Tokyo like this, and this was designed to be the prototype. And when you design the small house, the most important thing in design is how you can design the house much bigger than actually it is. So, idea we had was maybe we can turn the ceiling into the kind of a sky, secondary sky, which can reflect the different color of the sky and help people to feel that the space is much bigger and expanded beyond the actual material limit. This is actually the model of the VU project, which we just finished DOE, and hopefully they will accept it. It's, I think, 200,000 square foot building, including 5 departments and also the seminar spaces and auditoriums. In this project, I think what's good about this is it's like this is us, this is Zaha Hadid, this is Peter Cook, this is Carmen Pinoche, and this is Nomad, and this is Bus Architect from Vienna. So it's a great group of people, and just groundbreak as a group a couple of months ago. And they started to finalize the foundation drawing, and will be in the construction document phase soon. Idea for this one is the name of the concept is Milfield, so 1,000 layers. Instead of having massive volume, we sliced building, and it's kind of decided to see the building as a layers of thin buildings, as you can see. And that gesture allows us to permeate lights, air, and different kind of, also capture different activities, and also to align with, so adjacent the different activities. Like this. As you can see on this drawing, it's a very simple thing. Budget is very limited, so it's a kind of series of linear building. And then we have an atrium in between. So it's again like a pie. Build offices, atrium, offices, atrium, offices, atrium, and then you walk around it. But also, if you remember the initial this mediating form discussion, we kind of decided, okay, now it's a series of thin layer, and this thin layer is very fragile. So it's kind of flickers like a flame, and then capture the different special condition of each spaces, and then form interesting spacing in between. So I don't know if this model is good enough to tell, but each thing is shifted, and also each floor is differently, we call it pinched, and to create the particularity of the space within this very unified system. And this is a different way responding to different spaces, and how these, as you can see, it's get pinched everywhere. So by doing this, we try to capture things we don't see and we don't feel, and try to visualize by this kind of wavy flame motion. This is a pinch. We have a kind of a, so on top of the atrium, we have a piece called a mohawk. This is a device to bring in light, and also these things, and together with the atrium, will act as a device to control the environment more green. As you can see, this is one of the image of the atrium, and these spaces are really different in each department, because the way it's kind of flicker is different, so that although it's a long linear shape, as you walk, you encounter the different spaces. And these are series of also funny study to create the interesting kind of a, again, the flickering gesture of the flame to constitute the particularity of each spaces. And so there's a series of these, how to generate the winkle in a space, reflecting the necessity of the functions or the particularity of the space. Facade, this facade, we lost the facade twice. First, it was a glass facade, and then it was too expensive. The second, it was an interesting facade we created, but also it was reduced down to the stucco. So now we have a stucco facade. But also, as you can see, we covered this whole facade with this kind of a pattern, which is also reflecting how we pinched, or so that it will become interesting sort of a scale pattern, and it generates interesting visual effect. Still, hopefully this project will go to the site next year, and the intention is to finish the whole project by when? 2015. 13. Okay. Hectic. I guess the lectures got long, so I will skip this. You just see. Sensation of touching and the sensation of relation with the body and so on. And responsive. It's an architect's dream to have a house which responds to every different situation. You've seen so many flexible houses, movable houses, sort of Lego houses, and also each time disaster happens, everybody comes up and then let's do the tent and so on. But also everybody knows that if you go to the professional tent or the outdoor places, they have much better, incredible tents by using advanced materials. But still, responsiveness is a dream of architect. And of course, as a young architect, I propose a kind of system to accommodate different needs, temporary needs by different individuals. So we created some sort of a format to make it happen. And it was built many places and in museums and so on. But again, we stopped doing it because we designed this system and created a manual to make it happen. But each time somebody want to do it, they call us. We ended up helping them to do it, and it was pro bono. So then, of course, product house. We are asked to design the house, which is very small, affordable, and efficient, like a small car. And there's a model in the back in the 50s. It was a beautiful house designed as a minimal house, again, very small. And we were asked to do the contemporary version of it. This and this. Idea we had was, of course, we are doing tall. The 50s version was interesting. It was well designed. You know where there's an efficient kitchen, there's an efficient bathroom, and so on. But the funny thing is they designed the best lifestyle they can think of in a small house. Best lifestyle the designer thought. So people have to adjust their life into the minimal package the designer designed. That's not contemporary. So we thought maybe it's tall. We have more flexibility so that not you fit yourself to the lifestyle proposed. The house can actually fit the house itself to your lifestyle. So the location, the window is everywhere, so you can decide which window you open up. And then this placement of these kitchens and toilet was carefully set so that you have more flexibility to place different programs. So then we propose completely different way of using it as an example. And then of course, you have a different choice. Mocha and latte. And the latte was built. they picked up the ones which has a bedroom downstairs and some studies, then the living kitchen upstairs, and also they can expand to the loft. Then this is the next project we are doing in US. Actually, I have an office in LA now, and we are working on the two projects right now. One is this project in Vienna, and the second one is this house for making right foundation. As you know, they invited the first group of architects to do houses in New Orleans. This is a house for the people who lost the houses by Hurricane Katrina, and it has to be sustainable, affordable, and also the safe against the flood. And as you know, many people did this. I forgot which one by which one. I think this is ground. Then when I arrived, and then we were asked to design the duplex. Frank Gehry, myself, and Ray Cappy, and I forgot who else. And then, so the second group of architects were asked to design a duplex for the same price as this one. That means half the cost. It has to be really cheap. And by looking at these things, you can really wonder, what happened to the graph? Why he's using this kind of handrail or this kind of guardrail looking? Because the way to reduce the cost here is to use the donated product, donated labors. So you have to live with those things that usually you don't pick. And so we thought, okay, maybe we have to accept all these conditions. We have to use these roofing material, these finishes, also there's some sort of construction methodology to make these legs. So we need to find out something else. It's not the design itself, but we have to find something else to design. It's a UCLA color. So this is the typical double shopping house. This is very traditional in New Orleans. And when we went there, I kind of realized that there's so many lifestyle they have, or they have to the people have to experience there in their own life. Because first, maybe they start to live with the grandparents, and then after the grandparents goes away, and then they might have kids, and then kids goes away, but then they might come back with the grandkids, and because they are divorced and so on. So there's constant change in the lifestyle. So this system kind of worked, although it's a kind of horrible plan, but it had a flexibility to give some kind of a opportunity for change of this lifestyle. So we decided, okay, maybe we should do a triple shotgun in order to create that maximum flexibility in the plan. It looks very, very simple. You can see that all the necessary service functions in the middle. We thought maybe it's like an A-pop by say Miyagi. The people should be able to customize it a little bit according to the lifestyle. Then this material can be ships construction, very simple, insulated well, and also it's easy to construct. What we did was, so we will prepare the pre-cut for the house. So when they need it, they can just cut it out and change the plan. So we have a very basic plan, which stays same, but you can really create a different variation from like, 2 units, 2-bedroom unit by 2 to 6-bedroom situation, or the house with a gallery and so on, but just changing the opening. So these are different plans you can do, and then you can go and go. So with the basic, it's not like you have a different plan. You can change this plan by cutting out And I don't know how many we did, like 65 or 70 patterns we created, you know, to prove that actually you can really change and customize your house accordingly. And these are some images. So we didn't care what kind of material, what kind of detail will be. We just used simple detail provided by them. Only thing we designed was this kind of adaptability of the plan so that USC color. So people, now it was selected by the client and owner, and it's on the way to be built. So responsiveness is also the dream, and it's but still difficult to accomplish. But maybe in an era of sort of a global green and zero emission, maybe it becomes real. It becomes real but it won't happen unless you connect this with a much larger economical cycle problem. This is the end of the lecture. I just wanted to thank for watching this long lecture with a ton of slides. And again, thank you very much for inviting me.
I know you have many questions. Any question come, right? That's true.
Yeah. No, not the structure. How do you change the room?
I mean, change, you mean the color?
No, like the layout. How do you change the layout?
I mean, as you can see, it's just the layout itself is there already. It's just a different way of cutting. Maybe I should go back more. For instance, okay, this is a 4-bedroom, this is living, and you have a 4-bed, right? But this one is maybe which one is the best? This one. This is a 1 grandma unit, living and kitchen, and then 1 bedroom. And this is a 2-bedroom, and then living and